I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.
Hello there, Price of Reason here with a special report. Ever since it was announced and rushed into production in January 2022, it's been a strange and bumpy road for NBC's Quantum Leap sequel series. For starters, original series star Scott Bakula had read the script for the show and declined to participate in it because he apparently didn't think it was very good. Then, after already filming a few episodes of the new series, showrunners Steve Lillian and Brian Windbrandt were demoted and replaced by Martin Gero. Not really a surprise, as Lillian and Windbrandt are both disciples of Star Trek Discovery and Picard mastermind Alex Kurtzman, who himself is a disciple of franchise killer J.J. Abrams. Their original pilot episode was apparently so bad that it had to be repurposed for a mid-season episode, which sucked. And then, new showrunner Martin Gero shot a brand new pilot episode from scratch, which also sucked. When the show first aired, the ratings were somewhat acceptable for episode 1, although not great. Even though Scott Bakula wasn't in the new show, at least some longtime Quantum Leap fans were curious to see it, myself included, but quickly realized that the new series didn't really honor the legacy of the original. Instead, it actually disrespected it. As with most Hollywood productions these days, Quantum Leap focuses more on checking off all the right boxes while investing very little thought in the actual storytelling itself. The result is a cheaply made, poorly written show that more resembles a daytime soap opera and less a well-beloved iconic escapist sci-fi show. Not to mention that with the exception of veteran actor Ernie Hudson, acting-wise, the cast of this show are leagues below original series actors Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell. In the weeks that followed its September premiere, while the show had initially seen a serious drop in Nielsen ratings, they eventually somewhat stabilized. This stabilization in ratings, however low, led the network to increase the number of episodes in Season 1 to a full order, and also to later announce an unexpected second season renewal. Then, in another strange twist, following the renewal announcement, the show immediately went into a sudden 2-month hiatus. Following the hiatus, NBC aired 2 new episodes in January, and then the show once again went into another unexpected 2-week hiatus. Now in this video, I will give you both the Access Media's interpretation as to what's happening with the show, and also my own, and how I see the future of this show moving forward. Let's start with the most pressing and obvious question, a question that I've been asked by both the many people who dislike this show, and also by the few people who do like it. If this show is as crappy as I claim, and the ratings aren't stellar, why was it even renewed to begin with? And this is my official answer. Number 1. Peacock. Ever since NBC launched its own streaming platform, it's been frantically looking for cost-effective ways to sustain its relatively modest subscriber count, especially since it's only in 20th place among streaming services. With Peacock heavily relying on content from NBC, it doesn't have much to offer in terms of new sci-fi original programming, which is a good genre for streaming. In addition, Peacock does actually have all the old episodes of the original Quantum Leap show in its catalog, and perhaps NBC considered this a nostalgic companion piece to the original series, one that would attract new customers and sustain existing ones. That explains why months before the launch of Peacock, there had already been chatter in the media about NBC possibly reviving Quantum Leap at some point for that very reason. It would also explain why in January 2022, once a new annual budget became available, the project was greenlit and rushed into production. Number 2. It's cheap. As you all may have noticed, this version of Quantum Leap is produced quickly and economically. With the exception of maybe Ernie Hudson, none of these actors receive a hefty paycheck, and for good reason. Now, I'm not saying that just to be mean or anything. The rest of the cast are, at best, mostly unknown CW-level actors that you may find on some nighttime soap opera. This actually works to NBC's benefit as they could keep the cost of their salaries down. The writers are also bargain basement unknowns, and most of the set we see of the different eras are unconvincing and hastily put together as well. As long as new Quantum Leap can be made on the cheap, and just enough people watch it on Peacock and on NBC, then the show apparently has value to NBC. Honestly though, I strongly believe that if this was airing on any other network or streamer, this show would have likely already been cancelled. Number 3. Demographic. While the ratings of this show on NBC have never been stellar, the network has seemed rather pleased with the 0.35 to 0.4 demo numbers for ages 18 to 49, the age group that interests sponsors the most. Again, not exactly anything to write home about, but I suppose that these numbers were just good enough for NBC to order more episodes and renew, along with the other reasons that I've mentioned. But here's where things get interesting. If the show is going so well, why have 2 back-to-back unexpected hiatuses? And I believe I have the answer to that. The first hiatus, starting in November and ending in January, was likely due to an overload on the production. You see, for the first 8 episodes of the show, producer Martin Gero was flying by the seat of his pants, struggling to finish episodes in time for them to air, making changes to them right up until their simultaneous premiere on both NBC and Peacock. Gero actually let that bit of information slip out in an interview with mainstream media shill site Collider, where he said, and I quote, "We were still working on episode 1 several hours before it was set to air. These shows are done at such a pace that they air almost unfinished." Well, that would certainly explain the overall poor quality of this production. Therefore, I suspect that the initial lengthy 2-month hiatus was probably intended to give Gero some breathing space and time to actually plan the second half of the season, especially now that there were more episodes to film. I had initially hoped that perhaps Gero would actually use this opportunity to make some real improvements to the show, but somehow the exact opposite happened. The next 2 episodes to air after the first hiatus were especially poor, and that's not just my subjective opinion. They were actually accompanied by a significant week-to-week drop in ratings. Now, we can only go by Nielsen TV ratings, as streaming numbers are usually kept under wraps, but not only did the overall NBC viewer numbers sink to all-time lows, the 18 to 49 demo numbers sunk to new all-time lows as well. And these numbers include live, same-day DVR, and same-day on-demand viewings. In my opinion, this sudden drop likely spooked the network. Ultimately, I believe that it was this serious dip in ratings that influenced the decision to go on another hiatus. Now, of course, some mainstream media shill sites like Screen Rant have tried to explain that the additional unexplained hiatus was likely due to competition from the NFL, but I don't think that's the actual reason, especially since there's evidence to refute their claim. On Monday, January 9th, there was no Monday Night Football at all, and that was actually the new Quantum Leap episode with the lowest ratings to date. Only 1.75 million viewers with an 0.26 demographic tuned in that day, and I suspect that in addition to NBC, Peacock may have seen a drop in weekly viewers as well. And for those of you wondering, well, even if the ratings drop so significantly, what good would a hiatus do? And I do have a theory about that. Ever since I've been making these Quantum Leap videos, I've been talking about the infuriating J.J. Abrams-style storytelling techniques employed by this show. We're 10 episodes in and we've been jerked around every week with random last-minute twists. Janice is upset. Janice is doing something secret. Who is the evil leaper? Why did Ben leap? Janice runs away. Janice gets captured. Janice is investigated. Janice refuses to give information. Basically, a bunch of events that could have easily been condensed into about 15 minutes of one episode, or maybe across 2 at best, ended up being stretched as a cheap, gimmicky, key-jangling trick to make viewers stay interested. There's only one problem with this tactic. While some astute people are able to smell a rat more quickly than others, in the end, most people, even ones that aren't experts in writing, end up with the same conclusion, that this carrot and the stick type of storytelling is dumb and unsustainable. This is likely why after the unannounced surprise second hiatus, Quantum Leap star Raymond Lee told TV Line that he promises that by the end of season 1, all questions will be answered. He also made a point to clarify that they wouldn't leave viewers hanging. Basically, he was saying, look, I know we're jerking you around, but it will all lead to something in the end. Please just keep watching. And this is probably the reason why there was an additional unannounced 2-week hiatus. Most likely, after seeing the viewership drop, NBC asked Gero to make sure the upcoming episodes were a slam dunk, to rework them, to spice them up, whatever he had to do to get people interested again. Perhaps somebody from the network even told Gero that the jig was up and that he needed to actually write something that didn't stink. Maybe they even told Gero that if the show didn't bounce back in the ratings, it would not get a second season after all. And for those of you that are confused, yes, NBC did greenlight a second season of this show, but in our day and age, these type of renewals don't mean what they used to. Just ask Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav. At the end of the day, however long this show ends up running, I still maintain that it is doing everything wrong and that this house of mystery boxes will ultimately collapse. Unless Martin Giro can do a real 180 here and significantly raise the show's quality, I just can't see him pulling it off. That's because when it comes to good storytelling, there are simply no shortcuts. On a final note, it's also somewhat disappointing to learn just how rushed and scattered this whole production has been. Instead of carefully planning out a great season of a great show, instead of getting Scott Bakula on board with something worthy of the IP, we got a hasty and rushed production with very little quality control. Personally, I believe us longtime Quantum Leap fans deserved better than this. What do you think about the rest of Season 1? Are you excited to see it? Feel free to let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel and also clicking on that wonderful notification bell. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day.
I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos. But